It is no doubt a force to reckon with in the nation's maritime sector. Since it was established, Nigerian Shippers Council has come up with viable initiatives aimed at enhancing port processes for optimal service. Our searchlight this week is the Port Economic Regulator, with special focus on the impact of measures it has put in place to reposition the maritime sector. That and tidbits on international events in the maritime sector will be coming your way on this week's episode of The Shipper, brought to you by Nigeria's Port Economic Regulator, Nigerian Shippers Council. My name is Rekia Zikru Yagoyaju, and I'll be back shortly.
Nigerian Shippers Council, they to serve you well. No matter the problem, we go solve them for you.
Yes, so the Nigerian Shippers Council, they feel in a parole now for every level. And as soon as goods, they move from port A, go enter port B with a measure within on a need. For the Nigerian Shippers Council, we don't sharp proper to fit hear you wella, work with you wella, and help you fit serve your customers them better, no matter where them day. As we country port economic regulator, the Nigerian Shippers Council get every now to fit make government consider the problem where shippers them they face. Visit we office for number 4 or to buy your daily show your daily. And papa email us for nsc@shipperscouncil.gov.ng. We website now www.shipperscouncil.gov.ng.
For you, we dey gidigba.
Nigerian Shippers Council with a meeting now for the port of Nane.
Welcome back. The program you're watching is The Shipper, brought to you by Nigerian Shippers Council. Prior to the port concession, stakeholders in the maritime industry were swimming in bad waters. There was no regulation, and that created room for exploitation that shippers had to deal with. With the pronouncement of Nigerian Shippers Council as Port Economic Regulator, things improved. Various initiatives have been put in place by the Council. Lucy Ulugbe has details on these initiatives.
The sharp increase in world trade over the last 60 years focused the attention of national governments on the economic importance of ports. This was the case particularly in major ports developing industrial sites within their domain. In the 1950s and 1960s, many nations introduced institutional changes with the aim of coordinating port development at national and regional levels and preventing overinvestment in expensive port infrastructure. External forces of competition and technology from the shipping industry, as well as the financial and operational benefits of private participation in infrastructure and service delivery, became drivers for port reform. Researching the sector, we discovered that the Lagos Port Complex, in comparison to 3 neighboring ports, Tema, Abidjan and Lome, achieves an average efficiency score of 76% and exhibits some inefficiencies in its operations despite being the largest in terms of size and throughput. Although it is clear that Nigeria's ports have a higher volume of container throughput than other ports in the sub-region, the other ports have a higher efficiency rating despite their lower capacities and container throughput. The arguments can be advanced that its size accounts for these inefficiencies, but that argument immediately falls flat on its face when you look at the ports of Singapore and Rotterdam as just two examples of ports that are bigger than Nigerian ports. Efficient and well-connected container ports enabled by frequent and regular shipping services are key to minimizing trade costs, including transport costs, linking supply chains and supporting international trade. Port performance is a critical factor that can shape Nigeria's trade competitiveness. If Nigerian ports were to raise their efficiency, there would be no question that Nigeria could and would become the West African maritime hub. In 2006, in recognition of the importance of ports in the economic development of Nigeria and the need for a coordinated operation and management of port activities, His Excellency President Olusegun Obasanjo pushed through the concession of the ports and terminals. Like every venture, stabilization comes at a cost. The port concession exercise of 2006, which had the objectives of increasing the efficiency of port operations and reduce cost of port services to end users, is no different. In line with the federal government port reform agenda, Nigerian Shippers Council was appointed the Port Economic Regulator in February 2014 to create effective regulatory regime at the Nigerian ports for the control of tariff, rates, charges, and other economic services. One of the big responsibilities of Nigerian Shippers Council is to ensure smooth running of the port.
The Shippers Council now also has a mandate to provide guidelines on tariff setting in order to guard against arbitrariness, to reduce port costs and prevent inflationary effects on the economy.
Since its appointment as Port Economic Regulator, Nigerian Shippers Council has been serving as an agent of economic development through interventions in cost moderation and cargo transport issues. The Deputy Director, Monitoring and Enforcement of the Council, Mrs. Celine Ifora, spoke exclusively with the shipper on some of the initiatives of the Council since its appointment as Port Economic Regulator. She stated that one of the instigators of automation at the port was the identified delays in logistics chain.
In the procedures and processes, there were delays, and we advocated and enlightened service providers. We pointed out all those areas of delays, and we told them that there would be need to introduce electronic payment, because then you will see that people were going to the bank to make payments. So with that, they started the issue of automation, putting CCTV cameras in their terminals to find out when goods are missing and things like that. That helped. And as for users, we also enlightened them. We told them the benefits they are going to achieve if a place is automated, and they also are able to pay via the e-payment mode. And of course, till today, I want to say that the service providers have actually done so much, and in terms of improving automation in their terminal. But unfortunately, the users of the service, they are finding it difficult to cope. Most of the processes of the operators are already digitalized, and we are happy about that. We are still carrying out enlightenment on the users of the service to make sure that they comply with what we are advocating for, what Nigerian Shippers Council is advocating for. That is digitalization and automation.
Prior to Shippers Council's appointment as Port Economic Regulator, unilateral arbitrary charges were imposed on users by service providers without consultation from agencies of government. This, Celine said, led to the development of guidelines for tariff setting.
The number of charges were so many that, in fact, in one instance, one of the service providers had about 22 tariff headings, what we call the nomenclature. And we looked at them and we found out that some of the services they are claiming that they are providing were all encompassed in some of the tariff heading. But this proliferation of charges made them, because to get these charges and claim that they actually provided a service, that's why they are getting that charge. So they split it in different units. Then you could hear about service charge, bank charge, ISPS charge, tally clerk charge, and some funny names, processing charge, and so on. So we sat down with them on a round table and asked them, all these charges, you are already charging THC, you say you are charging service charge, you say you are charging labor charge. What's the difference between the THC you are charging and all this? By the time we finished, from 22 tariff headings, we ended up with about 9. And when we looked at that, we took an analysis of all these charges. The charges that were previously charged and the charges that we harmonized into those other charges. And we found out that we have brought down the charges by about 32% after the calculation and the analysis.
The Consumer Affairs Department, headed by Chief Kajitan Agu, is in charge of stakeholders' affairs, some of which include providing international trade information and representing Nigerian shippers' interests at local and international shipping trade fora. These activities led to the strengthening of Shippers Council's position as port economic regulator. Chief Agu sheds light on Shippers Council's initiatives in this regard.
Everything is not about regulation. Sometimes you have to educate, the stakeholders on some, contemporary trade issues. Take for instance the issue of ETLS. How can our shippers trade more, within the ECOWAS sub-region? We organize several enlightenment seminars in that respect. Now the after is also coming. We have also organized several seminars, to educate the general public on how we are going to participate actively in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Speaking on trade support infrastructure, the Council has facilitated and promoted the establishment of inland container depots, inland dry ports, border information centers, and vehicle transit areas, as revealed by the Director, Inland Transport Services, Philip Edua.
The Inland Transport Services Department was one where we were able to facilitate the development and rapid construction of some IDPs in Nigeria. I want to take you back to 4 major IDPs that the Shippers Council has actually facilitated and monitored the development. First, I want to talk about the Kaduna Inland Dry Port. That one, as I say, we have 100% completion of that project. Another one that the department that we've actually facilitated the development and monitored the construction again is the Dala Inland Dry Port. And I want to tell you that has reached 95% completion. Then another one is the Funtua Inland Dry Port in Katsina. And that, I must tell you, as at the end of last year, it was at 75% completion. And of course, the last one that we know that is also undergoing construction now is the Jos Inland Dry Port. And of course, that one has attained 48.4%. So what we do here is we must collaborate with relevant agencies to make sure that there is seamless movement of cargo from the seaport to the hinterland.
Prior to Shippers Council's appointment as port economic regulator, the complaints unit was responsible for complaints by shippers only. However, since 2014, the unit now mediates and handles complaints from all stakeholders. The head of complaints unit, Daniel Orume, revealed to the shipper that billions of naira has been saved for consignees through the activities and operations of the unit.
From 2015 to 2021, the council through complaints unit have been able to save almost about 3.2 billion naira for those consignees based on complaints from demurrages, transfer charges, container deposit refunds, and so many other issues that we've tried to mediate between the shipping companies and the consignees through sometimes when they seek for waivers from the shipping companies, the Shippers Council come in to mediate between them to ensure that at least for the purpose of facilitating trade, let them look at issues and see how both parties will resolve it amicably without being unfair.
Orume spoke to the shipper on transfer charges, which have long been a thorn in the flesh of the unit.
When the consignee import their cargoes, it's supposed to be at the terminal. but sometimes they find their cargoes being transferred to off-dock terminals, and most times they are being charged some fees for those transfers, which are not done on their own requests. And so what the council is trying to do is now to ensure that we resolve those issues of transfer charges. And if you remember, there was this gridlock that the Nigerian economy faced in Apapa. And this was because of congestion in the port. And in order to solve that problem, there was this issue of trying to transfer those cargoes from the terminals to the off-dock terminals. And so during that period, the Nigerian Shippers Council had to come into the situation to see how they could move some of those containers from the port to the terminals. And at that point, it was now an issue of who bears the cost of the transfer. And the Shippers Council had to discuss with all the stakeholders so that those costs were to be shared. But ordinarily, the international best practice, when the cargo is being transferred without the consent of the consignee is not supposed to bear those charges. But in some cases, we find out that they are being charged those costs, so we are trying to see how we could resolve them.
7 years after the appointment of Shippers Council as Port Economic Regulator, more needs to be done. And to do that, the Nigerian Port Process Manual (NPPM) was launched by the Vice President, and in February 2021, a Port Standing Task Team (PSTT) was inaugurated with Shippers Council as lead agency. In the short time the PSTT has operated, things are looking much better at the ports, so says Coordinator General Moses Fadipe.
When there is a problem in a vessel in the past, probably because he has infracted, he has the evidence say, oh, your passport is not stamped, you don't have a visa, this thing is not done well, consular agreement is not valid, and whatnot. And they seize your documents. You know, that vessel cannot leave that spot. It must be there until you perfect those things. And you now complain. So in the past, when we receive complaints like this from vessel masters, it takes us an average of 7 to 10 days to resolve it. So what is the implication of resolving the matter in 7 to 10 days? And that vessel will be there at the bed. The worst case scenario, they can push it to midstream for another vessel to come in. But that does not mean you can go. And every day you stay, you pay $20,000 as demurrage. As you have demurrage on container, you have demurrage on vessel. So in 7 days, you are paid $140,000. In 10 days, you are paid $200,000. I'm just letting you know how corruption thrives. So if that master is being asked by any government official who have apprehended him, say bring 10,000 and let me allow you to go, what will he do? Gladly, we thank you, take the $10,000, let me go, instead of incurring that. But with the coming of the PSTT, we now have an average of 1 to 4 hours. 1 to 4 hours. So it's less than 24 hours. But if that issue is an intricate issue that we know will go beyond 24 hours, after that 4 hours, we know, oh, it's still complex. We have to get to the root of it. There's no way we can do it in 24 hours. We quickly invite the vessel's husband, come and put down a bond or indemnity to that agency in a particular sum, so that we allow the vessel to go. So when we finish our investigation, it's found wanting, that indemnity will take care of it. So that's another systemic thing we've entrenched today that makes the vessel captains all over the world to be happy about coming to Nigeria.
In carrying out its responsibility as Port Economic Regulator, Shippers Council doesn't work alone. Some of its partners attest to the fact that Shippers Council's efforts are bearing fruit, making a difference in the maritime sector.
We started with the use of the vessels, joint examinations, or joint boarding, we call it, where everybody has to be on board at one time, which is called the one-stop shop. Before they are coming, vessels will be hanging until one agency or the other agency will come, and when you come, you go, another one will come, will go, which is going to take a long time. But the harmonization of the boarding process now make it easy for all agencies to be at the same place and performing their professional duty differently, you understand, which will save time and cost for the vessel carrier and the shipping company.
Transport remains a critical determinant in the conduct, indeed, success of international trade for its potential impact on national economies. Nigerian Shippers Council will continue to initiate interventions to ensure Nigeria becomes the maritime hub of West Africa.
You're still watching The Shipper, the veritable platform for information on maritime activities. Abike Idu has tidbits on news making the rounds in the maritime world. The Executive Secretary and CEO of the Nigerian Shippers Council, Honorable Emmanuel Jime, has called on terminal operators to allow for negotiations before the introduction of charges for their operations. Jime made the call when the management of Port Terminal Operators Limited, PTOL, paid a walking visit to the NSC's headquarters in Lagos recently. According to him, arriving at the appropriate tariff can only be done through negotiation. Responding, the head of the team from PTOL, Chioma Okwanyi, expressed their readiness to abide by the Council's directive as Port Economic Regulator. We always urge stakeholders in the maritime industry to visit the Council's website www.shipperscouncil.gov.ng for more information on our services, as well as report any complaints using the PSSP portal www.pssp.ng. Let's now check on our complaints register for the week. Eight complaints were received, and they are all ongoing investigations. The type of complaints include demurrage, delayed refund, and loss of cargo. And now, global maritime news. Towage and subsea firm Kotug has agreed to acquire OSV owner and operator Seaways International. Kotug said the acquisition was a move to expand its offerings, assisting floating energy facilities as energy demand rises. The companies aim to complete the transaction in July 2022, subject to approvals. Wärtsilä Voyage has invested in Marindos, a Japanese company developing an open digital platform for the country's maritime industry. The move will see Wärtsilä Voyage and Marindos cooperating on areas such as vessel optimization and autonomy, and strengthen the Finnish headquartered company positioned in Japanese markets. Darren Shelton, CPO Fuel Trust, has been appointed as the second America's Regional Ambassador of the Global Maritime Club, an international initiative created by Sea Trade Maritime. With this appointment, the Americas gain a second ambassador representing the club that primarily aims to promote growth in regional maritime sectors. But wait, there's more. BIMCO has updated its greenhouse gas position statement to support net zero carbon for shipping by 2050. The position raises BIMCO's ambitions beyond the International Maritime Organization's initial GHG strategy, which targets a 50% reduction in total GHG emissions by 2050. BIMCO said it continues to support the vision and objectives of that strategy, but that it believes ambitions should be higher. And that's it on this week's Tidbits. Till next time.
From A to B, from A to B, from north to south, from north to south, from east to west, from east to west, from port to port, from port to port. You can ship your goods and feel good too. Oh yeah, Nigerian Shippers Council, we meet you at the point of your need.
The Nigerian Shippers Council is now better poised with responsive systems in place to help you and other shippers get seamless, stress-free transition for your clients' goods from point A to B. Today at the Nigerian Shippers Council, timeliness, orderliness, transparency and efficiency is all we care about. Put your complaint through to our helpline. Visit us at number 4 Ayodele Shoyode Lane, Apapa, Lagos, or reach us on www.shipperscouncil.gov.ng.
Nigerian Shippers Council, we meet you at the point of your need.
Nigerian Shippers Council, we meet you at the port of your needs.
And this is where today's voyage on the shipper ends. Until we take you on another exciting voyage next week, here is a reminder to all regulated service providers to register with Nigerian Shippers Council. We thank you for watching. Goodbye.